Hey, everybody. Notice somebody's missing. Michelle was out partying till very late last night for her 10th anniversary, which we are so happy to celebrate with her. And so as a result, I'm here all by myself. And I wanted to see if we could do something a little different today. We're going to try this maybe every Friday, but today will be a good time to do it. Why don't we do an AMA where if you have questions for me, throw them in the chat and we'll just talk about it, whatever you guys want to ask about within reason, and we'll address it. But in the meantime, let me just talk about a couple of things. It is first and foremost November 14th, 2025. I'm Julie Roginski, all by myself. It's 8 a.m. in New York and 1 p.m. in London. Welcome to the Mayday Morning Show. I mentioned London because there's a question that has been on our minds lately. What's the matter with the United States? Two high-profile Britons were ensnared in the Epstein matter. The first, of course, is Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the former Prince Andrew, and Peter Mandelson, the storied diplomat who negotiated a favorable trade agreement for the UK with the Trump administration and still was sacked. Both of them were for involvement with Epstein. Andrew lost his titles while Mandelson got recalled as the ambassador to the United States. Meanwhile, not one prominent American mentioned in the Epstein matter has so much as lost a job opportunity recently. And so you got to wonder what is going on and what is the difference between the United States and Great Britain? Why is it that the British are able to hold their people to account in ways that the United States is not? And I think it begs the question because you have a member of the royal family. I mean, the guy was literally born into privilege, and yet everything was stripped of him for the most part. I mean, he's not living in a homeless shelter. He's certainly still living on his brother's estate, but he's kind of living at the mercy of his brother and has been shunted off, I believe, to Norfolk. Whereas here in the United States, you have plenty of people who've been mentioned as being aligned with Epstein. I'm not talking just about Donald Trump, but I mean from across the aisle. And yet nobody's really lost any job opportunities. Nobody's really lost any issues. Nobody's really lost any people are still able to kind of go about their business. They're not disgraced the way Andrew has been and the way Peter Mandelson apparently now is, also the former ambassador to the United States. And this is a man who had a truly storied career in the diplomatic corps for the United Kingdom. So I've been thinking about this kind of for the last few days, especially since news of the former Prince Andrew has been bubbling up. And I'm wondering, what is the cultural difference between them and us? You have people like Larry Summers, the former Secretary of the Treasury here in the United States, also the former president of Harvard, who continue to have these kind of bantering emails discussing women with Jeffrey Epstein long after Epstein was already a convicted pedophile. I mean, there was no question that Epstein had done something wrong because he had pled guilty to doing something wrong. And yet people like Larry Summers continue to have all sorts of conversations with him. Larry Summers, of course, while at Harvard, was the president of a university where you had young women who were just 18, sometimes even younger, entering the university. And yet that apparently wasn't a problem for Larry Summers, that he was talking to a man who had no problem having sex with underage girls. And so on and so forth. And it's just, if you look through these emails and you look at the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was tagged, I guess that's one word for it, down in Palm Beach by Alex Acosta, the former labor secretary under Donald Trump in the first administration. And at the same time, while he was tagged, he still continued to have a great social life. Everybody continued to talk to him. Nobody had an issue with this. I think, to me, that's probably the most disturbing part of this, is that it didn't really stop him in his tracks. It's not like people suddenly abandoned him and said, oh, wait a second, this guy's been up to no good. We're not going to talk to him anymore. I mean, everybody stuck with him. Everybody. the former head of the Nobel Committee, the former president or prime minister of Norway. I apologize, I'm not sure if they're presidents or prime ministers in Norway, but that person continued to have conversations with him. Over and over and over again, given the opportunity, people continued to have conversations with him. And I actually have a Substack out on this morning, not so much on this topic, but on the fact that more and more you're starting to understand that being a alleged child predator is really not a problem for a lot of people. It's not a problem for them that they get to continue their social circle, that they get to continue to be promoted. There was news yesterday that broke that Matt Gaetz, the former congressman, had sex with a young girl. She was underage, who was living in and out of homeless shelters, and she was being paid $400 to have sex with him in order to save up money to buy braces to fix her smile. I mean, braces, right? Something kids do. And it didn't matter. Law enforcement was aware of this. Law enforcement knew all about it. And yet, despite knowing all about it, law enforcement continued to do nothing as he worked his way up through Congress. This was recently. I mean, this was like 27. This is in the first Trump administration. And then Donald Trump, despite having access to all of this data, nominated him to be the Attorney General of the United States, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States, while this man was credibly accused, not just by this girl, but by other witnesses who were there, of paying her $400 to have sex with her twice at a party, where she also alleged that she watched him do cocaine. Now, of course, he denies all of this, but this wasn't a problem for Trump. Trump nominated him, or was going to nominate him, to be the Attorney General. The only reason he didn't become Attorney General was because the Senate stopped him, not because Donald Trump stopped him. I mean, a credibly accused predator, credibly accused of having sex with an underage girl. The age of consent in Florida is 18. She was not 18. That's one. And then you go back even further. Roy Moore, who ran for Senate in Alabama during Trump's first term. All of these allegations came out from all of these different now women, saying that when they were little girls, he effectively tried to have sex with them. And so disturbing were these allegations that you had Mitch McConnell, Susan Collins, I mean, a whole host of Republicans, including at the time, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, coming out and saying, this is unacceptable. We don't want this man to run for Senate. What did Trump do? No problem. Endorsed him, even after all of these allegations came out. And then, of course, there's Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of 5 counts of effectively helping traffic young girls, putting them into the meat grinder of Jeffrey Epstein, God knows who else. A jury of her peers found her guilty, and Donald Trump calls the whole thing a hoax. The whole thing's a hoax, which is why she was moved to Club Fed, which is why there were reports yesterday that came out that said that women who complain about the special privilege that she's getting in Texas at her relatively cushy prison have been moved to much harsher conditions. She gets to have extra toilet paper. She gets to have tables moved so nobody can approach her. She gets to play with puppies, which, by the way, is illegal, because if you're a child sex predator, you don't get to play with animals. They actually don't allow that, because if you could harm children, you could harm animals also. And yet Every time Donald Trump sides with the predators against young women, young girls, I shouldn't say women. They're not women. They were girls at the time. And what I just don't understand, whatsoever how, if you're a sexual assault survivor, never mind a girl who was a sexual assault survivor, how, if you watch this, you would ever want to come forward when the most powerful people on earth in this country don't just consistently side with the grown up men who harmed you, but also nobody's ever held accountable for harming you, ever. At least across the pond, across in the United Kingdom, you had a member of the royal family who got kicked to the curb. Took a while, but ultimately, I guess the king felt he had no choice. The government recalled Peter Mandelson, despite the fact that he negotiated a great deal for his country and did everything in his capacity as ambassador that was expected of him, because he had a long and sordid relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So he's kind of been recalled in disgrace. In this country, not so much. You've got to wonder what that's all about. And it's disturbing, and it's something that has been on my mind a lot. I just don't understand where we lost our way. I really do. And I think some of you know, I, in my not so spare time, run a nonprofit that is dedicated to eradicating silence and mechanisms in the workplace. It came out of my experience, the experience of my co-founder, Gretchen Carlson at Fox News. And so, I have spoken to, at this point, probably thousands of women who are sexual assault or sexual harassment survivors, or have otherwise been discriminated against based on gender and more. And the common thread is, if I speak up, it's going to be worse for me than it is for the person who I'm accusing. And while I will always say that you should speak up because you will feel better, potentially, it's a very personal decision. You can't argue with the fact that more and more it is becoming increasingly difficult to do that. Because when you have the president of the United States on down, not just covering for these people, but promoting them, one to become the attorney general of this country, one to become a United States senator, one who he's clearly working his way to pardoning or commuting her sentence, and giving her privileges that, I mean, what is worse than harming children? I can't think of anything. And yet, this woman has been given every benefit. Why? Why? Why is the entire Epstein controversy a quote-unquote hoax, according to Trump? You had a press conference of, I don't know how many women a few months ago stand up and talk about what he did to them. You had testimony in the Maxwell trial of what she did to them. There are apparently over 1,000 girls whom he trafficked. And yet, the most powerful man on earth thinks they're all liars, the whole thing is a hoax, and nothing ever happened. Doesn't think that Roy Moore did anything wrong. That was also apparently a hoax. The Matt Gaetz allegations, also apparently a hoax. I mean, think about that when you put that in context, when you put that all next to each other. Even if Trump himself did nothing wrong with these girls, and that's a big assumption because he's fighting very hard to prevent that from coming forward. So I don't know why you'd be fighting so hard to oppose the release of the files if you're not complicit. But let's give him every benefit of the doubt that he did nothing wrong personally. Just the very fact that there's pattern after pattern after pattern of him always siding with alleged sexual predators against the girls, now women, who come forward should be enough to say that this man does not belong in polite society, never mind in the White House. I mean, at least Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is now kind of shunted off into internal exile. It's cushy exile, but it's still exile. Not Donald Trump. Not Donald Trump. Even if you know nothing more about what happened, it's still enough. And, you know, this is just, I stayed up till about 1 o'clock this morning, which is why you probably see what you see right now, putting all this together, writing my column. And then I couldn't sleep. And I typically, I will work until late into the night, getting these columns ready for 8:30 launches the following morning. And then I turn off my computer, I open my book, I read for a little bit, fiction typically, and then I go to sleep. I could not sleep last night. This really bothered me. It really disturbed me. And, it's what do you say to people who want to come forward about abuse? You will be accused of lying, and your perpetrator will be rewarded, especially if you're a young girl. Then they'll be supported by this president to go to the United States or to be the chief law enforcement officer of this country. I mean, my God, the chief law enforcement officer of this country was a man credibly accused not just by an underage girl, but by multiple witnesses of doing drugs and paying a child to have sex with him. Now, she apparently claimed that she was 18, so I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he did not know that she was underage. She was 17, so okay. Still, you're paying somebody $400 to have sex with you who you think is an 18-year-old girl. And when that is alleged, your boss or purported boss, the president of the United States, says, no problem. I think you're the perfect guy to be in charge of our law enforcement in this country. So that when other girls come forward to federal law enforcement about being trafficked, you will be the perfect person to say, you know what, I'm going to get right on that. Think about that. If you know nothing more about Donald Trump, you already know that nobody's disputing that. He nominated Matt Gaetz, even after all of these allegations were out there. It existed. The files existed. Law enforcement had them, which means that Trump's vetters had them. Didn't matter. Trump didn't care. You know why? Because Matt Gaetz was going to do whatever Trump wanted at the Justice Department. That's all Trump cared about. Matt Gaetz was going to go after his enemies, so it didn't matter that Matt Gaetz was doing drugs and having sex with a girl he thought was a woman. He thought was 18, but in fact was an underage girl. And paying her $400 for it so she could get braces and fix her teeth. Didn't matter that multiple women came forward against Roy Moore. Doesn't matter, because Roy Moore was going to help Trump build that wall. So those little girls who Roy Moore allegedly did stuff to, no worries. Doesn't matter. You could be a senator, most exclusive club in the world. And Ghislaine Maxwell, whole thing's a hoax. Whole thing's a hoax. The jury fell for the hoax. The press fell for the hoax. The MAGA base fell for the hoax. The 1,000 girls who were trafficked fell for the hoax. All the women who spoke at that press conference with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey and Roy Khanna, all fell for the hoax. The only person that knows the truth is Donald Trump. The rest of us, nothing ever happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing. It's all a hoax. Which is why Ghislaine Maxwell is apparently rotting in prison for no reason, according to him. Whole thing's a hoax. He's a monster. Even if there's no evidence that will ever come forward that he did anything himself with young girls, he is a monster. He is a monster. Because he's going to prevent untold numbers of girls from coming forward and telling their stories about the next time somebody does this to them, because they will not want to be accused of being part of a hoax by the most powerful man on earth and by all of the millions of people who take their guidance from him, including law enforcement. If there was a child sex trafficking ring right now that the Justice Department should be working on, would you come forward with this Justice Department and this president? Why? Why? And that's before all the files are released and we get to the bottom of what really happened. Before Katie Johnson, the alias of the young girl who's 13 years old who claims that Trump raped her. We don't know. We don't know if she exists. We don't know anything. But eventually this will come due. But even if it doesn't, which it will, what we know full on, without any doubt whatsoever, is that this man has already copped to this, to trying to promote alleged predators to positions of immense power to go after their accusers. Imagine being that girl who wanted to get braces and knowing that the most powerful law enforcement officer in the land was going to be the man whom she accused of having sex with her for money, and whom she accused and other witnesses accused of doing cocaine. I mean, think about the fear that this girl, now woman, who was living in and out of homeless shelters, working at McDonald's, trying to save up for braces, felt when that happened. Just amazing. Just amazing. I don't know what else to say. On that note, let's see. Any AMAs, guys? I see somebody here wants to talk about, well, the Megyn Kelly thing. I think that speaks for itself. But what else? Tomahawks for Ukraine that he denied. Yeah. So you wonder why he's denying tomahawks to Ukraine. You wonder why he's denying a UN resolution that Ukraine put forward that was trying to hold Russia accountable. And the United States is trying to water it down to take away any reference to territorial integrity that Ukraine wanted in there. Why? Well, I think we talked about this yesterday, but I think we're getting to the bottom of why. Getting to the bottom of it because Donald Trump was the subject of discussion between Jeffrey Epstein, according to the emails that were released on Wednesday, and at least Vitaly Churkin, the former ambassador to the United States, who died right after Trump got inaugurated the first time. But then he being Epstein, tried to have a separate discussion with Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of the Russian Federation, which the former head of the Nobel Committee said, no problem, I'll put you in touch. I'll talk to Lavrov's assistant about it. I'll let you know. We don't know whether Lavrov, he had conversations, but according to Epstein, Churkin, he did. And he gave Churkin apparently everything he had on Trump, or at least a lot of what he had on Trump. So if you're wondering why Donald Trump spent 10 minutes in the beast alone with Vladimir Putin, and you're wondering why Donald Trump kicked all Americans out of any discussions he had with Putin and had only Russian interpreters during the first term. And you wonder why. The one time that he had an American interpreter in Helsinki, shortly after he got elected the first time, he took her notes and would not let her share. I hope to God, I mean, I can't even imagine that this didn't happen, but who knows with the Biden administration, that when Biden came in, they got a hold of this interpreter, this translator, and they debriefed her on what was discussed between Putin and Trump. I don't know why that hasn't come out. It should have. There's a lot of stuff Biden didn't do that he should have done, because we need accountability. He so didn't want to look political that he effectively gave up any accountability for Trump. It's pretty clear, if you believe what Epstein wrote, that he gave Putin leverage on Trump. After Trump got elected, these discussions were being had in 2018 after Trump got elected. A year before he died, Epstein. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think you need to be a conspiracy theorist, but I think it's something to bear in mind. And Yuck Fu, I don't think that Biden was afraid of Taco. I think Biden was such a creature of the establishment because he'd worked in Washington for so long that I think he truly did not anticipate that Trump could ever be back. That's why he kept calling him the former guy. And I think he also miscalculated that people would want to just move on. Whereas I think at least, and I think a lot of you probably, and let me know if I'm wrong in the chat, but would have wanted accountability and justice. Not retribution, justice. There's a difference. And yeah, I mean, Putin, of course, is creeping up to have intel. He's a former KGB officer. Just a story about Putin. Angela Merkel, the former chancellor of Germany, is apparently deathly afraid of dogs. Deathly afraid of dogs. So the first time she and Putin met, he had a snarling, barking, I believe, German Shepherd next to him to unsettle her and kind of get her off her equilibrium. All of these people, and it's not just Putin, our government does too, has a psychological profile and makeup on anybody they're meeting with. And, obviously they have Trump dead to rights. They know everything about him. They've been tracking him since at least the mid-1980s. They've been working him since 1986 at the very latest, probably earlier than that. So it's just, bear in mind that he has been in their orbit for almost 50 years. Something to really think about. Or I should say almost 40 years. My math is off. Dana Cottingham, I am so sorry about your brother. I just saw this in the chat and I'm so, so sorry. Brutal. And thank you for spending your time with us today. Hopefully this gets your mind off of this. The horror of everything I'm talking about is going to get your mind off the horror of what you're going through. But so very, very sorry about that. Rosie, I see that you're still sick. Me too. Hopefully you feel better. As you could hear, I'm a little congested. I actually have to jump in about 10 minutes a little early today because I have to go to CNN International to talk about this BBC lawsuit, but I'll talk to you guys about it first. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Trump filed $1 billion with a B dollar lawsuit against the BBC for splicing his January 6th rally speech to make it look like he was urging people to go storm the Capitol and get violent. BBC probably shouldn't have done that, but to say that the BBC is on the hook for libel and defamation when Trump got impeached for fomenting what happened at the Capitol on January 6th is hilarious. Unfortunately, the BBC, of course, is, and the Brits in the chat would know this, the BBC is owned in part, I mean, it's the BBC Corporation, but it's a asset of the British government. And so therefore, this could become a diplomatic problem for the Starmer government and Trump. He's obviously looking for the Brits to be shaken down the way he shook down Disney, the way he shook down Paramount. Now he's shaking down the BBC. This, of course, is much larger in some ways because it is a diplomatic problem that we're about to have. And I just hope that the Brits don't cave. Because if you're now going to have, talk about a violation of the Emoluments Clause. If you're going to start having bribes, which is what this would be, effectively paid off to Donald Trump by our staunchest allies, and nobody's more staunch than the British have been, what more can we say? Then this effectively becomes nothing more than a mafia regime where you're now shaking down people saying, nice NATO alliance you've got there, nice intelligence sharing alliance you've got there, nice trade alliance you've got there. Be shame if something happened to it. John Donahue, is going on MSNBC and CNN worth all of the trouble of having to schlep there monetarily? I don't actually get paid to do this. So I only do it very sporadically, not as often as they ask me to do it, because this is my priority. I only do it when I don't have anything else going on. And I only really do it to drive subscribers here and to my Substack. Otherwise, it's not worth it to me. I used to work at Fox. I used to get paid at Fox. I used to work at CNBC. I used to get paid by CNBC. But I'm not really interested in having another contract with another legacy media entity. I truly believe that they are dying every day more and more. It's not worth it. I would much rather build up Mayday. I would much rather build up my Substack, and which will eventually hopefully merge into one. And I do it again. If I do it, it is because I have them say that I have Mayday or have the Substack, and so more people come to it and we get more viewers that way. Maybe some of you came to us through those channels, but that's really the only reason I do it. I couldn't care less. As for schlepping there, it's not a big deal. I live in New York. It's the one thing about CNN I will say that MSNBC does not do. CNN will give you full hair and makeup. So as you can see, I have no makeup on except for lipstick right now. Plus I'm a little sick, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But by the time I walk out of there, this hair will be looking great and this makeup will be looking great, and I will be ready to go out tonight. We're having dinner with friends tonight, if I can survive that long. Again, my cold is getting worse and worse. But John, they have not mentioned Mayday on air yet, only because we haven't launched Mayday officially yet. When we launch it probably in January, then I'll have them start mentioning it. But right now we're doing a soft launch. We're trying to work out all the kinks. We are trying to see what works. For example, do you guys like having an AMA on Fridays where you get to have more of a discussion with us? If Michelle were here, we'd be both having a discussion with you. Do you like us talking to each other more? Let us know. Really, we want to make this as pleasant as possible for everybody, and we want to make this as interactive as possible if people like that. So that would be really great. Zinc lozenges, Leonard Smiley. Thank you. I hate lozenges. I don't like it. Don't like it. So I just am drinking a ton of hot tea. I forgot to bring some up today, which is why my throat's a little scratchy. But Wolfie Mum, not only everything Julie said, he would be taking money off UK citizens as we pay a license fee. Of course, this is your money. And not just a license fee, but I believe also a lot of your tax dollars go to fund the BBC. So it's not that you just pay a license fee for every television set you have, which is different than we have here in the United States, although we have carriage fees for cable, but also your taxpayer dollars, which is crazy. Less video of Trump, Miss Banks. Well, it's kind of hard to do when he's the president. We can't ignore him. That's what Biden tried to do, and it didn't work out. We got to look evil in the face, and we got to call it out. So I don't know if I agree with that. Dana, thank you. That we're a blessing from God. I'm so sorry. about what you're going through. I will say, if you want to take your mind off stuff some more, Dana and everybody else, are people here familiar with Jeff Jarvis? Has anybody followed him online, or he's on CNN quite a bit? So he's a huge he's a media critic. He's a media reporter, and he is going to be joining us at 11 o'clock today here on Mayday, also on Substack. We're going to be talking to him about corporate media and what the hell is going on, because it's getting worse by the minute. I mean, I will tell you, I have not been back on Abby Phillips' show since Scott Jennings freaked out because I called him out on his lies on air. And he literally, during a commercial break, turned to Abby, goes, every time she does this, every time. And that was it. So you want to know about how, like, what's happening to corporate media? Great example right there. It's getting worse by the moment. It's just, it's such a shame, because for those of us who grew up with CNN, I mean, they went live in the early 80s, or maybe even 1980. I mean, they first came to attention, I think, during the first Gulf War in a big way. And what's happened there now is just sad. I mean, I'm doing CNN International today at 10 a.m. Eastern, so whatever time it is for those of you around the world watching this. And CNN International is great. It's great. But slowly but surely, CNN domestically is having, they're going to be put up for sale very soon. Time Warner, Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns them now, is going to be sold. Looks like the people who are going to buy it are the same people who bought CBS. Barry Weiss will be in charge, and what that means is everybody's getting ready for MAGA to take over CNN. So they're doing everything they can to make it more MAGA friendly. It's not a coincidence that MSNBC spun off from Comcast and NBC right after the election, because Comcast didn't want, and NBC didn't want, the albatross of a progressive network there too. So now they're going to be owned by something called Versant, which is some made-up name. They're no longer MSNBC. They're now going to be called MS Now, I think. Yesterday was my last day at 30 Rock, which is a storied place at Rockefeller Center for people who know New York, where MSNBC has been housed for years along with NBC. They are now moving to the old New York Times building in Times Square for a few years. So I'll be going there next week for the first time. We'll be curious to see what that's like. But, again, Trump, everybody gets upset. Nobody wants to cross Trump. So everybody's moving on. You said Anderson Cooper needs to leave CNN right now. We'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see what Anderson Cooper does. We'll see what Erin Burnett does. I think Erin Burnett has one of the best shows in television. I think she's got a great show. Fantastic. Both Anderson and Erin, I think, are not anybody to bend the knee, but we'll see what happens. You said, I don't like the new name, Jessica, for MSNBC. I know, but do you remember when MSNBC first launched, how stupid that sounded? It was Microsoft NBC, because it was a joint product of Microsoft and NBC. So I don't know what MS Now kind of sounds like. Multiple sclerosis now almost sounds like a disease that you should be having now. But we'll see what happens. Mary P., what's happening there is exactly what happened with newspapers back when they ruled the world. Remember Pulitzer and Hearst? Yeah, of course. I mean, and newspapers are going through that now too. I mean, look, the LA Times is owned by Trumper. The Washington Post is now owned by Trumper. What's left? The New York Times is owned by the Newhouse family. They're still doing good work, but they both sides the hell out of everything. The New York Times, because they want to appear impartial. They don't want to appear particularly partisan. So everything becomes both sides, and it becomes like one person says the earth is round, and one person says the earth is flat, and let's have a both sides discussion about it. That's not good either. And that's about it. I mean, look, we're going through some crazy media ecosystem now, where you have a huge amount of independent media that's coming on, and some of it's going to survive and some of it's not. I mean, look, I'll say this as somebody who writes on Substack every day, 6 days a week, I should say, sometimes more. Anybody can start a Substack, like literally anybody can start a Substack. But it's also incredibly time consuming. And when you're writing that, you're not doing other things to make money. And so I think kind of it'll weed itself out, right? Like if people are willing to pay for your stuff, then you'll continue to do it. And if people are not willing to pay for your stuff, you can't make a living doing it, the Substack will fold. And I think that's pretty much the case. But what's going to happen is the problem for Substack is I don't have an editor, right? I can pretty much say whatever I want. And so I always reference everything. Like I don't just say stuff. I always provide sourcing because I think it's important. But it doesn't mean that pretty soon people are not going to provide any kind of sourcing. And then once you start programming that into AI, and AI starts taking from places like Substack and other unproven, unsourced entities, pretty soon AI, which is now going to create our new reality, is going to create a reality that may not actually be real. And that's something we've talked about here before, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying to think about. Same thing, Chicago Tribune. Somebody said Chicago Tribune has been bought by Trumpers. So yeah, everything. Lawrence is good people. Mary P. You're talking about Lawrence O'Donnell. Great guy. Wonderful man. Great show. Love his show. Best show on MSNBC. Love, love, love. And you're right, Mary P. We lost local news. And when we haven't lost local news, it's owned by people like Sinclair. And Sinclair makes their anchors read from, no matter where they are, from very specific scripts that unfortunately make it almost impossible to see that they're MAGA spin and nothing more. So it's crazy. You guys, Cynthia Rice, the Philly Inquirer is independent. I used to have a friend who used to own the Philly. I have a friend who used to own the Philly Inquirer. He does not anymore. Great newspaper. Love it. I think it's really, really good. They have great op-ed columnists. And if you are anywhere in the Philadelphia market, you should definitely read the Philly Inquirer. You guys, I got to go to MSNBC. So I'm going to run. I'm sorry that the show was short today. I'm sorry Michelle is not here, but it's for a good reason. She texted me at about 1:00 in the morning. She was still out singing at some piano bar with her husband and celebrating. And I don't know if people know this about Michelle. She's got an incredible voice. And she's a brilliant singer. And I'm just happy that she got out and got to do that. That's great. I am going to go to MSNBC. CNN, do the show. I'm going to come back here at 11 o'clock. Come join us again for Jeff Jarvis. Hopefully Michelle will wake up by then. And then I will see you, and so will Michelle, on Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern, right back here. Let us know if you like this whole AMA thing. I think it's probably going to be better even when Michelle comes back. We're a little bit more interactive, and I feel a little bit better. In the meantime, everybody, see you soon, and see you back here at 11. Bye, everybody.